Hello and welcome to this episode of the PD Smash podcast. Today we have a great episode for you. First, we're going to talk about Alvin Kamara's 6 touchdowns. Then we're going to talk about the Jets' second straight win. And for our second half of the show, we're going to be talking about Stefon Diggs' monster game, as well as Nikola Jokic outstanding start to the season. And then finally, to close out the show, we're going to do our Week 17 preview of the NFL season. So first, I want to talk about the Alvin Kamara situation. Well, I don't even know if you can really call it a situation. It was just amazing. Watching him score 6 touchdowns. Actually, I watched highlights of him doing it because I didn't get the game, which I was actually kind of sad for. But watching him score 6 different touchdowns, that's insane. It's him, and I don't even remember this other person, but he was like 1950s. Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy that someone in the modern NFL can tie a record like that. 6 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara, congratulations for going into the record books. You have now submitted yourself as a top 3 running back in this league and have a case for the best one, because right now it's Zeke's out for sure. Nick Chubb's kind of there, but not really. So it really just kind of leaves you with Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Alvin Kamara. And scoring 6 touchdowns definitely makes you the case for being the best one out of those 3. If it wasn't for the fact that Derrick Henry's on an MVP campaign right now and has a punter's chance. Well, it's not even really that much of a chance anymore, but he still has a slight chance to hit, I think it's 2,000 yards, which is insane. Which there's been like only a handful of players to ever rush for 2,000 yards before. So that would be crazy for just Derrick Henry and running backs in general. But him and Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook are also electric. And congratulations to Alvin Kamara for really cementing himself in the pantheon of running backs for the early 2020s. Next, I'm going to talk about the Jets. You know, I wrote an article about this last week and talked about it on my podcast, but the Jets can't even win at losing. They can't be the best at anything. They have to be the second. They have to be the worst. They're even the worst at being the worst. It's insane. I think Sam Darnold deserves a lot of credit, and I think that the Jets really need to consider keeping Sam Darnold long term because of the reasons I outlined last week. I'm not going to really go that much in depth. If you want to hear more, go to my last week's podcast and my last week's article where I detailed why the Jets should keep Sam Darnold. But just congratulations to the Jets for not only beating one team over 500, but for beating 2. It's very funny. It's hilarious. But really, there's a meme that I saw. It was these 2 dogs. One of the dogs was all fluffy and cute, and the other one was absolutely hideous. And the first one over it said, when the Jets are in the playoff pictures, and it showed the little fluffy dog. And then it was when the Jets are not out of the playoff picture, when the Jets are out of the playoff picture. And it showed the really ugly dog that looked like it could destroy anybody. And I don't even know. But that's just what the Jets were and what the Jets are up until this point. The Jets are just the weirdest team in the NFL. I really just don't know what else to say about the dang Jets. They're the Jets, and there's nothing more you can do there. So now moving on to Stefon Diggs' monster game. The Patriots got shellacked. They got absolutely and utterly shellacked. And that's just a fact. Cam Newton does not look good, but that could be because he's still dealing with the after effects of COVID. Yeah, he was asymptomatic, but that may not be necessarily true because some people like to just tough through symptoms. So he could definitely have been not. How do I put this? He could have definitely been showing symptoms and just brushed them off. So Cam Newton could still be dealing with that, so giving him an offseason to recover. I could see why the Patriots would continue to trust him and put him in a position to where he could win and take control of that team next year when they get a full year of draft picks under their belt and they get all their players back from opting out of the season and all that. But other than that, I think Cam Newton will be okay. I think the Patriots will be okay next year. I don't think it was really realistic for any of us to expect them to make a deep run in the playoffs. With that in mind, this was just a reboot year. That was my opinion. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind when we look back at this season in terms of Bill Belichick's resume. So, yeah, just in totality, I don't think we should have expected any more from the Patriots this year. But now moving on to the Bills, really, because Patriots are kind of a dead story at this point. It's really just now the Bills who have surprised everyone, along with the Miami Dolphins, who are also in that division. But the Bills, Josh Allen took another huge step, and Stefon Diggs really proved why he deserves to be a number one option without a doubt, and why he is actually a top 5 receiver in this league. There's not very many people who could guard him like that. No one could guard him. He is unguardable. He's uncoverable at this point. But you can't hope to stop him. You can only hope to contain him. He is that level of good. He is the Julio Jones, the DeAndre Hopkins good. He is that type of good. So, overall, I think it's a good season for both of them, for both Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs, and I think they're going to continue to do it, and I really just want to congratulate them both on having a really good game. Next, I want to talk about Nikola Jokic and his amazing start to the season. Not a lot of people had him in the MVP conversation, but it's looking like more and more that he should be in that conversation, starting off in his first 3 games, I believe, with 2 triple-doubles, being the first center since Wilt to get 18 assists in 1 game. He is a menace out there, an absolute menace. If you watch that Rockets game where he got those 18 assists, he was one step ahead of the defense at every moment. It was amazing to watch Nikola Jokic literally just pick apart that defense. It's amazing, his passing ability. He reminds me a lot of great passers of the past. One in particular being Larry Bird. Just kind of how he manipulates the defense, because he's never the flashiest passer. He has really good passes that if you look at it, you're like, wait a minute, he did that no look. He did that a wraparound, but it doesn't look like a no-look pass. It doesn't look like a wraparound pass. He makes it look effortless. It's not a big deal, so people kind of overlook it. But when you really slow down the tape and watch, he goes no-look passes. He does wraparound passes. He does behind-the-back passes. His finesse and his IQ is insane, especially for someone so tall and someone who plays the center position. If they really needed to, as they showed in the bubble, could play point guard. Could he guard a point guard? No. I'm sorry, but it's Nikola Jokic. He can barely guard centers sometimes. But that man could facilitate and do every other point guard role. You just have to switch whoever your 2 was, whether that be I'm trying to think who's on that team, Will Barton, Gary Harris, just one of those people you'd switch on to whoever would be with Nikola Jokic, and then you just slide Nikola Jokic down to the 4 and push everybody up. But you just gotta really just appreciate how amazing Nikola Jokic's passing is and how we undervalue it, and we're underappreciative of these small market players like Devin Booker, like Nikola Jokic, like Donovan Mitchell the past. It's very hard for small market players to make a name for themselves unless you are literally a once-in-a-generation talent. And I think Nikola Jokic is very close to that. I don't think he's quite there, but he also doesn't really have the swagger of many of the small market players that have been able to ascend. Nikola Jokic didn't really have his reputation, and the first time a lot of people really realized and noticed who he was in the bubble, which is amazing considering he's the best center in the NBA. No, it is not Joel Embiid. It can't be Joel Embiid for many reasons, including his motor, but that's another discussion for another day. But it's just amazing to watch Nikola Jokic play. My apologies. And I encourage you all to look at his game and watch him play, because it is truly amazing. Anyway, now for our final segment of the day. Are y'all ready for this? We're going to go through each of the games for week 17 and talk about them. So, first off, we are going to do the Buffalo Bills. Now, with the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, this game's going to be good. And the Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills are both still fighting to make sure they can get into the playoffs. So, well, not so much the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills are fighting for seeding, and the Miami Dolphins are fighting for a playoff spot and making sure their seeding in the wild card is good. So, I'm going to assume both of them are going to play their starters for at least most of that game. So this is going to still be a high-flying, high-action game. So I will be really excited to watch. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be in 3 points of it each other, and I think that we'll see a really good, high-octane gameplay there from these two teams. And I think that eventually Buffalo will come out on top. And I think Buffalo is going to prove itself to be, honestly, the best team in the NFL through this game. And I think this will help them almost clinch the number 2 seed, because we'll get to it later. But I believe if they win this game and the Steelers lose, they do get the number 2 seed, if I'm not mistaken, which would be really big for them. Anyway, now moving on to the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. This is not going to be a close game. Yes, the Bengals have come alive the past couple weeks, but the Ravens are on a mission. Lamar's on a mission. The Superman Pooperman. I can't even believe I just said that. But you know what I mean. Ever since he came back from COVID, he's been ready. And he's on a mission to get them to the playoffs and honestly get them to the Super Bowl. So I really just, for Lamar Jackson, this is not some sort of game. This is like his life, and I think he's going to show that, and they're going to run over the Bengals. Literally run over the Bengals. I think the Bengals are a young, promising team, but I don't think they have the parts to really compete with a motivated Ravens team. Next, we have the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. Now, this game is pretty meaningless because neither really have a chance at the playoffs anymore. So, there's not much to really, preview here. However, I do think that this could be a game that AP goes off, Adrian Peterson, because this is against his old team. This may be his final game of his career. Hopefully it's not. I like watching him play. But it definitely could be the final game of his career versus his old team where he had his prime years. I could definitely see Adrian Peterson running all over the Minnesota Vikings. I could also see Minnesota Vikings just crushing the Detroit Lions with their passing attack, as that back seven is absolutely horrendous for the Lions. But really, overall, not a really much to talk about with that game. Next, we're going to move on to the New England Patriots New York Jets game. Now, this again, not the biggest of big games, just in general. I think that the Jets are most likely going to end on a 3-game winning streak. I think they're going to end winning out. I think there's just too much going on for the Patriots for them to really put up a fight. And I think that just Sam Darnold's going to be able to outplay Cam and outplay the coaching of Bill Belichick and that coaching staff. I don't really think there's much else to it. Now, this one's an interesting one, not necessarily because either team is good, but because this has playoff implications, actually. Because the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants, now the Dallas Cowboys, if I'm not mistaken, right now, or give me a second as I am looking this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are, as of right now, 6-9. That means if they beat the Giants and the football team loses, they have made the playoffs, which is quite fascinating. Now, on the other side, if the Giants win and Philadelphia wins, then the Giants also make the playoffs. So you got two teams fighting for a playoff spot, and that is incredibly important for both teams because they both really want to get to the playoffs. Now, this is kind of crazy because it's 3 teams in week 16 or week 17 that all have a chance to make the playoffs from the same division, and there's only one playoff spot, which shows you how competitively bad this division has been, which is very sad for me because I'm a Washington football team fan, but that's besides the point. Anyway, next we have the Atlanta Falcons and Tampa Bay game. Oh wait, no, my apologies. I didn't give my prediction. Anyway, I do think the Giants come out with a win in this game. I just think that the Giants are better coached, and I think that's what's going to win. I cannot stand Mike McCarthy, and I do not think he's a good coach. So I think the Giants win with better coaching from Joe Judge. So that's my prediction for the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants game. Next, we have the Atlanta Falcons Tampa Bay game. And I think this is going to be a closer game than most people are going to give it credit for, because this is a rivalry game, and any rivalry game is always going to has a chance to be a good game. And I think both these offenses are really good, and both the defenses can have question marks at times. So I do think that Tampa Bay and Atlanta is going to go the distance, and I think that it's going to be a really close game, but I do think in the end Tampa Bay is going to pull out with the victory. And I think Tom Brady is going to secure his spot in the wild card round. Next, we're going to go with the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. Now, this is a must-win for the Chicago Bears. If they win this, they're in the playoffs. And that is crazy. That's insane. Who thought at that point in time the Chicago Bears, yes, the Chicago Bears, were going to make the playoffs? This is crazy. It's the Chicago Bears. Midway through the season, we all thought they were dead. But now they're alive and they're kicking, and if they can beat Green Bay, they win. They get into the playoffs. However, I don't think that Green Bay is going to let that happen. I think Green Bay plays its starters, and I think Green Bay rolls over the Chicago Bears. And I think the Chicago Bears are going to have to hope the Arizona Cardinals lose. Next, we have the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Denver Broncos. Again, this game doesn't mean much. Both of them are outside the playoff race at this point, but it's going to be, I think, a good game. I think Drew Lock is improving every game, and I think that the Las Vegas Raiders are very on and off, and as it's a division game, I think there's a definite chance for this to be a really, really good game. With that in mind, I think that in the end, the Las Vegas Raiders will win, but I do think it will be a squeaker, and I think it will be a good game. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Jaguars. And this is also not going to be a close game. the Indianapolis Colts need this win to get into the playoffs. And with that in mind, they are going to win because the Jacksonville Jaguars have nothing to play for. They're tanking for Trevor. So they will most likely lose this game. And I don't really think there's much more. I think that the Indianapolis Colts are just better in every facet, and I think they're just going to roll over the Jaguars. Now, next, we've got the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. Now, this game has a lot of implications because if the Steelers win, they still get their chance at the number 2 seed, and if the Browns win, they secure their spot in the playoffs. However, I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get back on track, and I think they're going to beat the Browns. Now, I like the Browns. I think their running game is fantastic. I think Baker is good, and I think that defense is opportunistic. That defense definitely needs some more work, and Baker definitely needs to work on his arm a little more, but I think it's a really good team. However, I think Pittsburgh Steelers defense is going to prevail in this one, and since it's a rivalry game, I think it's still going to be close, but I think that Pittsburgh's going to pull out. Now, based on everything I said, this means that the Browns will not make the playoffs. Yes, the Browns, at a 10-6 record, if I'm not mistaken, will miss the playoffs. And that is a saddening fact. And I'm really just sorry to Browns fans, because they had a really good season this year. Most years, 10-6 is just great, and it's more than enough to make the playoffs. But this year it's not in the AFC, and that's just going to be a sad fact. So I'm really sorry to Browns fans, but that's my prediction. I do not think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to allow the Browns to make the playoffs. Now, we have the LA Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs next. Now, this game is going to be good because, again, it's a rivalry game, and the Chiefs have not looked good of late. But I think that since a lot of people are going to be out for the Chiefs, I think the LA Chargers do find a way to win this one because there's no need for the Chiefs to really play to win. They're not going to have Tyreek Hill. They're not going to have Patrick Mahomes. Yes, their backup quarterback's okay, but I still think Justin Herbert, with the weapons he has around him, are going to be able to prevail against the backup Kansas City Chiefs. Next, we have Arizona and LA. Now, Arizona, this is a very important game to win. If they don't win this game, they're out of the playoffs. Now, with the LA Rams, I'm not exactly sure what their situation is. I'm pretty sure they have a lock for the playoffs and are just playing for seeding, but you always like to knock your competition out, especially when it's a division rival. I remember the New York Giants doing that to the Washington Redskins at the time, and honestly, it was heartbreaking to watch. But they were like, even though we have the number 4 seed locked up, we're going to destroy the football. We're going to destroy the Redskins and make it so they don't make the playoffs. So that's what they did. And now it's what I believe the LA Rams are going to do to the Arizona Cardinals. However, I think Arizona still has a chance to win this game, as I think they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives. And as long as everyone comes back healthy from this week, because I know they had a few injuries, I believe that the Arizona Cardinals will pull it out. Next, we have Seattle at San Francisco. This game is going to be closer than it appears on paper because San Francisco is such a well-coached team. And as such a well-coached team, they have a way of keeping games close. With that in mind, I think this is going to be a good game to watch, especially because it is, again, a division rivalry. But I think Seattle pulls out on top and secures their seed for this upcoming playoff run. The next game is New Orleans and Carolina. Now, New Orleans is not looked good of late. But I don't think that's necessarily New Orleans' fault. I think that Drew Brees just hasn't been right because of the rib injury, and I think he will get there in time for the playoffs. I think it will either happen this week or next week where he'll be 80 to 90%. So once Drew Brees gets all the way back, it's going to be the Saints will be fine, and the Saints will be a force to be reckoned with. But this week, I think they still have enough to get past the Panthers. The Panthers are a really good team. They're a lot better than their record shows in terms of competition. So I think it's going to be a tough game, but I do think New Orleans squeaks it out with help behind their 6-touchdown running back, Alvin Kamara. Next, we have the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans. Now, this game is going to be a good game because the last time these two teams faced, it went into overtime. And I think that Deshaun Watson has the ability to keep any game close. He was my MVP pick at the beginning of the season, and if his team could help him in any way and they could have gotten to a decent record, he would be in that conversation because he is still such a great quarterback. He's just gotten zero help from the defense. His wide receiving core, Will Fuller, I'm looking at you, you PD man. And just all in all, just really had no help. So even with that, I think he's going to be able to will this team to be close with the Titans, but I think the Titans come back and win a game and don't drop 2 straight. Wait, did they lose last week? I believe they lost last week, but let me double check myself there so I don't give you all false information. Yeah, they did lose. They lost to the Green Bay Packers, 40-14, and that was a humiliating loss, so I think they will bounce back and win, but I just think it will be close. Finally, the final game of the regular season is my Washington football team versus the Eagles. Now, this is going to be a good game, and it's going to hinge on 2 things. Those 2 things being Alex Smith and Terry McLaurin. If those 2 people are healthy, the football team wins. If those 2 people aren't healthy, the football team most likely loses. And if the football team loses, they will without a doubt be out of the playoffs. Whether that will be Dallas, it will be the New York Giants. I do not know, but if I'm not mistaken, the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, the Philadelphia Eagles can't make the playoffs. Just period. But that's insanity. I think it is that 3 teams can make the playoffs. But I think the football team does end up pulling this out because I think Alex Smith will come back and I think Terry McLaurin will come back. And even if Alex Smith is just Alex Smith, I think that's enough because I think Logan Thomas is an emerging great tight end. I think Gibson can hold it down in the run game. And I think that defense can contain Jalen Hurts enough to where they can keep it low scoring. And in the final seconds of the game, Alex Smith can lead a game-winning drive. So that's it. Those are my picks. I hope you guys liked listening to them. And I hope you guys liked listening to this episode. If you guys want to listen to more episodes, you can either go browse them on the YouTube channel. You can click the link in the description and go to the podcast page. If you want to read one of my articles, you can go to the article section. Or if you want to contact me and talk sports, because that's what I love to do, you can go to the homepage and scroll all the way to the bottom where it has my phone number and my email. Please text me. Do not call me because I will not pick up. Thank you all for listening, Smash fans, and until the next one, Petey Smash, signing off.